Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie discovers his 35-year-old wife's infidelity after a friend reveals her affair with another married man. Confronting them at a book club, he ends their marriage, moves out, and rebuilds his life with his children. Meanwhile, his wife's subsequent relationships end in betrayal and disappointment, while he finds happiness in remarriage. Through his experience, he emphasizes resilience and self-worth, urging others to prioritize communication and boundaries in relationships. Now let's get into the story. I, 41, didn't realize that my wife, 35, was talking to several other men behind my back. The man she talked to the longest paid her for pictures and videos when we were struggling financially. We had 3 kids, one of them nearly an adult, and we were married for 10 years. After she felt like she could get away with talking to AP behind my back, she started making up stories for places she had to go to. One night she told me she was going to get her hair done. And she did, but it took a long time. Another time, this could have happened many times while I was at work and the kids were at school. She spent the day with him. He was like her sugar daddy. I didn't know she was sneaking out or doing anything behind my back until I got a call from a married woman we were both friends with for about 7 years. She was crying and said she just found out her husband was cheating on her. I was shocked to hear this and told her I was so sorry. I was shocked because when I spent time with her husband, he told me how much he loved his wife. I recalled one time we were alone together and he spoke highly of his wife and then asked me how my wife felt. But then he corrected himself to how I felt about my wife. Right after this memory, she told me my wife was the one sleeping with him. I instantly understood why she was calling me. I had a vision of my heart plopping onto a platter and a fork, stabbing it, then a knife cutting into it. I asked her how she knew, and she said she was holding her husband's phone at that very moment. He forgot it when he said he was going to meet some friends. She tells me she was looking at their messages right now, and he lied. He was going to meet my wife at a book club. Hearing her mention the book club made it all too real. That was definitely my wife's thing. She would go every week, but she never invited me to go. I wasn't much of a reader. AP's wife sent me pictures of what was going on while I drove to the book club. These messages mentioned times they had intimate, things they wanted to do, and risk pictures. They were all about to get a rude awakening. I busted down the door. 8 women, all intently and dreamily listening to AP, the only man in the room reading a romance novel out loud. My wife was wrapped around his arm with her head on his shoulder. The room gasped and looked at me when I walked in. My wife jumped straight to standing, and AP looked like his worst fears were realized. I looked him dead in the eye and said his wife knew what he was doing. He could only say no, but I said yes and added that she sent me the messages between him and you. I pointed to my wife. Then AP ran out the door. My wife covered her mouth and all the other women stared with gaping mouths as this unfolded. I told her she made a vow to me 10 years ago and gave birth to children only for our marriage to end like this. My voice cracked and tears started flowing. I told her she ruined 2 marriages and I never wanted her to come back into my home again. She very quietly said that this didn't have to happen because she was sorry and learned her lesson. I told her I didn't give a crap if she learned her lesson that would only benefit her future. But now I had to pick up the pieces of my own life, the life that she gave up for another man. Then I left. One of the women chased me down and handed me a little piece of paper with her phone number on it. All the other women started whispering and awkwardly leaving itching to spread the word around town about the book club breakup. As soon as I got home, I realized this building didn't feel like home anymore, just a grave of the life I was living. So I packed up the kids and everything I could over the next few days and with my brother's help, moved into my parents' 3 hours away. This was what I needed to do while I divorced my wife and got financially situated to the point where I could buy a new home. Meanwhile, AP was divorced and moved in with my ex. They probably thought everything was going to be okay for them until they were both ordered to pay child support. But that's not all. AP found out just a few weeks later that he wasn't my wife's only lover, and after some thought, she decided she could do better than him. She moved out, leaving him broke and the sole person living in our old marital home. She moved in with some dangerously rich man. She was treated pretty well there at first, and they actually decided to have a baby together. However, while the paint was drying in the nursery, my wife's new husband cheated on her. Then he wanted the new woman to be his wife and have his babies. So he kicked out my ex, providing her the money for an abortion. I don't know if any of you guys believe in karma, but I am certain that's what happened here. My wife wanted the money and didn't give a crap about anyone else. So that's literally what she got: temporary riches from someone that didn't give a crap about her. I've since bought a new place and remarried. I thought I should share this story to inspire people, particularly men who were betrayed by a woman that they trusted. As much as it hurts, we are strong enough to get through it. Men are meant to take the hardest crap dealt in the world. We don't even need much to keep on going. But if a woman fails, you just get another one. I know that sounds heartless, but I was able to do just that very thing. No matter what you're faced with, always be communicative and caring while knowing your own boundaries and what you deserve. That's how you just keep surviving and functioning. Today's second story. In this story, a 40-year-old ex-gang member decides to leave his criminal past behind, settling down with his wife in Indiana. However, suspicions arise when he discovers his wife's involvement with a crime lord. With the help of a former associate, evidence is gathered, leading to a divorce and the revelation of her deeper involvement in criminal activities. She ultimately faces consequences alongside the crime lord. Now let's get into the story. I, 40 male, used to be in a gang. While it's true that I assisted in robberies, escapes, and revenge crimes, I was never the person to wish harm on someone else. For that reason, I decided to give up my gang membership, move out of state, and settle down once I got a real job. It took hardly any time at all to meet my future wife, 37 female, and fall head over heels. She came to our little town straight from NYC, sick of the hustle and bustle that possessed everyone in the city. It all looked gray and meaningless before she decided to seek out a joyful countryside to live in. We were both escape artists, living our second life even after we were married in our home with our beagle named Dean. I periodically remembered that I had connections to people who knew how to get stuff done without getting caught. I didn't know I would need to reconnect with one of these people again. I knew my wife was spending a lot of time with this group of friends she grew close to. They were even going to the club together. I didn't mind. She earned her own money and was a grown woman. She made money from home by managing one man's business connections. She scheduled his appointments and wrote correspondences on his behalf. I didn't know what the business was. All I knew was that it was very successful. He didn't have the time or patience to keep all his ongoings organized, so it was up to my wife. Whenever she was off work, she spent some quality time with me before heading out to have some fun. I didn't enjoy the busy, crowded, loud atmosphere, but I figured if she went from NYC to this life, she probably missed the crowds. The biggest city nearest was Richmond, Indiana. There was one club in particular my wife liked to visit. One night, I really felt like I needed to follow her. The way my wife left the house was weird. It was like she really didn't want me to come with her. Like if I asked to tag along, she wouldn't know what to say to me. Besides, no. She was absolutely gorgeous, like always. Her dress hugged her body, making her look like the most appetizing hard glass I ever saw. Her long hair looked like flowing whiskey. That's what I kept thinking about as I searched the crowded place for her. 15 minutes before I got there, she posted a selfie with her and another girl, and I saw the club name. I could see a man next to her, but he was talking to someone out of frame, so it was hard to tell if he was with her. I spotted her sitting in the VIP section with what appeared to be members of the mafia. My wife and I were living in Indiana for about 5 years at this point, and I just couldn't understand how she managed to find this type of crowd hundreds of miles from New York. It was like I was looking at the woman, She told me she didn't want to be anymore. She moved away from that life only to find the same thing again. I knew it would be stupid of me to try to approach them at all, so I returned home and contacted Marty. He was one of my connections, and he had some spare time. Lucky for me, I chose to move to Indiana because it's where Marty called home. He spied on my wife for me for 3 days. That was all the time he needed to discover the following: she was acting as secretary and assistant to a crime lord. AP had at least 15 men working under him, but he gave the most attention to my wife. She was his main squeeze, and Marty was able to capture photographic evidence of their sexual relationship in our house. Apparently, Marty was hiding in the bushes beside her driveway and heard my wife telling this man that she lived alone and liked it that way. After they used my house for their meeting, she took all our framed picture drawers and put them back exactly as they were before I left for work that morning. Even though I was seeing and hearing the truth, it was so far from what I expected that it felt fake. I didn't want to believe that the woman I started my second life with was a liar and a cheater. I didn't want to consider starting a third life. I like this one. My thoughts changed as soon as Marty showed me a video of them having intimate in the club's bathroom. Suddenly, she wasn't a classy, sophisticated woman. She was a despicable girl that used me and lied, willing to go behind my back and give herself to another man in a public bathroom. Marty told me he believed their relationship began shortly after we bought our house, around the same time she met those women friends of hers. I knew I didn't want to be married to her anymore. I didn't even want to see her again. Marty hung out with me while I called all our friends and family. My ML's attitude was extremely selfish. She just asked me what I expected her to do about it. I told her not to give my wife any support during the divorce because she didn't deserve any help after destroying our marriage. After that conversation, I felt like more needed to be done about this. When my wife got home, Marty was with me, and I showed her the pictures he took. She knew she was caught, so she sat down on the floor right where she stood and asked me what was going to happen. I told her I was divorcing her and she needed to move out. Her jaw dropped, and she asked me where she was supposed to go. I told her I didn't know, and I didn't care because she ruined my life. I expected her to be my loyal partner, the one I could trust and bond with without worrying about her cheating or leaving me. I swear she snickered when I said this. She covered her mouth and blamed it on her brain, reacting wrongly to the situation. She was only making it easier for me to be furious with her. Marty helped me usher her out the door with the bags we packed for her, but she just kept laughing and asking if we were serious. She knocked on the door for a while, but eventually got on her phone. Someone came to get her. None of this was fair. I hated that she had someone else to bail her out of the situation. If I cheated on her, I wouldn't be able to get off as easily as she was. I went to the police with the evidence we collected, and they confiscated my wife's laptop for their investigation. She hated that even more than my divorcing her. She was living at AP's house when the police raided it. After finding evidence, he was linked to a major violent crime. Her laptop revealed that she helped to make arrangements for AP to get away with more than 10 crimes. She picked evidence-dumping locations using Google Maps. They were both arrested and served several years before my ex-wife was released. She's bitter, filled with hate, and struggles to find any stability in her life.